So I'm going to be going ahead and installing the JXD3 valve body on my transmission now. First thing I'm going to do is go through and match up all the gasket holes. And this is a stock gasket on an aftermarket plate. So there's going to be spots that look like this where the gasket needs to be cut out because there's a hole there in the plate, but there's not a hole there in the gasket. Another spot is right up here. This one I can see a little bit of the hole through it, but I'm going to cut that one out a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to go through and double check all the holes on the plate to valve body side. So that would be the gasket underneath the plate, between the plate and the valve body. And then there's a separate one that is marked TC for trans case side. So that would go here, and then this one's going to be against the case. So I'm going to do the same exact thing, line the bottom up, and then I'm going to be looking again for areas that there's an open hole in the plate, but not an open hole on the gasket. So again, we got down here, right here. Looks like it's covered up. And one down here. So after I open up all those holes on the gaskets, then I can put them on. Alright, so also make sure that you cut this hole out. This hole right here feeds the block, and that's normally covered up by the gasket. So make sure you cut that one out. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get this block bolted on, and that'll hold the plate and gasket in place. Then I can go ahead, I'll put some assembly lube on this, and then I'll line up the gasket so it sticks, and then I can flip it over. He brought me Linkin Park out on the Walkman just to remind me that I'm still young. Awkward. Alright, so I got the block on there. This gasket is held on with assembly lube. Just kind of smeared the plate with assembly lube so it doesn't slide around at all, and I can flip the thing over. I did put all the solenoids in. One other extra thing I did was use some Loctite thread sealer, not thread locker, some thread sealant. And I did seal all of the set screws in here. And then I also put some thread sealer on this bolt here because the bolt is kind of short and this passage connects directly to the hydraulic passage inside the block. So my thought on that is that there's a possibility that you would have a leak behind this bolt if you didn't seal that bolt. Because the bolt is directly above this passage. It's drilled and tapped all the way down to the hydraulic passage. So with the threads being short, and then if you had any like biffed threads or the threads weren't cut perfectly on the block, you could have a potential for a leak there, and then that would also give you a slow apply, potentially. So I just put some thread sealer on it. Alright, so I got the reverse servo on. I have the band servo in with the spring. I did put the 4 check balls in. The Jake's kit has 4 check balls. Here, 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 and here. So that's kind of what those look like. Alright, so then I'm just going to recheck this thing. Make sure all my wiring's out of the way. I also did go through and put some split loom and stuff over the harness. And I'll probably do this, and I check this 10 times because I don't like how it goes down, and then I want to recheck it. And then I got to figure out how to get the wiring down. There's really no good way to do this. I always get paranoid because then I pinch something in the gasket or whatever, and then it doesn't drop down straight, and I'm all worried that the gasket moved. I might just have to be happy with that. Okay, so I did re-loom all my wire. I actually redid some of the connections inside there because when I was messing around with my positive wire that goes to the brake solenoids, the wire actually broke, and the heat shrink inside of here doesn't do very well. It likes to absorb the fluid, and it loosens up and slides around. So I put some long heat shrink strips on it at each joint, and then put the wiring loom over it, and then got the wires secured pretty well. I did make sure that I leave the temp sensor exposed to the fluid. I did add the rear lube fitting. Did ground the brake solenoids here. Pressure switch is hooked up on this side, and this should all be good. I'm leaving the EPC solenoid off. The EPC is just like a plug right now. Now I can put the filter on and the pan on, and then it's all done. Alright, so there it is, all finished up, ready to go back in the truck. So nothing too fancy on the outside. Looks normal, but you can tell it has the billet input shaft. So I just got a lot of cleaning up to do. I got 2 tables of stuff out after doing the engine and the transmission. I do have all the rest of the parts for the engine, front cover, rear cover, gaskets, oil pan gasket. Other than that, I think I'm just going to spend the next day or so cleaning. Then I'll get to the engine. I did start buying some fuel system parts. So I have 2 AEM 400s, a big old filter, some line. I have to get injectors yet, and I have to order a converter. So injectors and converter are like the last 2 big purchases. Other than that, it's all just little stuff and putting it back together. Doing all the wiring, figuring out power steering, all just kind of little tinker stuff. So that's kind of exciting, at least getting to the point where I don't really have to buy a lot of stuff. But on the other hand, those little things will like crush you because you really underestimate how much little stuff you got to do. So that's kind of it for this one. I think I'm just going to leave the firewall like that with the hole for now. I'm going to probably just run the wire harness through that hole. I do have a plan to like smooth the firewall and put bulkheads and stuff on there, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it this year. So I'm kind of like at this point where I might be able to get it done and out this year yet if I cut some corners on things like that. Like I can do that later over the winter. Yeah, there's quite a few things like that that I might just push off until winter just to try to get it out this year, because I don't want to... It would just be annoying if I got everything like buttoned up and then the track just closed that week. I am in Wisconsin, so it's very weather dependent if it's snowing or cold or whatever. There is a track like 2 hours from my house that's open later in the year typically, so that might be a good test for the truck to, you know, make sure it's the street drivable race truck. If you actually drive it 2 hours to the track, make a pass, drive it home, that would kind of be the streetable test. So I'll start working on this stuff.